Yo, it's Fernando. Shouts out to Valley Views, man. They played me on the station. I was like, let me make you a jingle. So this is my jingle I made for them. This is what I had to do. This is Valley Views. This is what I had to do. This is Valley Views. Got me singing like, eh, eh, eh. So what you want? Got me singing like, eh, eh, eh. So what you want? Got me singing like, eh, eh, eh. So what you want? Got me singing like, eh, eh, eh. So what you want? I wasn't tripping when I lost my job. No reason to lie to my mom. Now I've got 8, 9 to 5, y'all. I was like, right on, right on, right on. No work on weekends, eh? Waking up early, sleep at 8. I think I'm surely dreaming,
and a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending when and where you're listening to Valley Views. My name is Hector, the host here of Valley Views. And of course, alongside me is Carlos. Carlos, good morning. How you doing this morning?
Good, I'm doing good. I'm really excited to interview all these guests right now.
Yes. So welcome, everybody. We're part of the today on Valley Views. It's our Meet the Candidates 2022 series here on KROJ 101.5 FM here in the San Fernando Valley. And part of the Meet the Candidates 2022 series, our goal and our mission is really to educate our audience, the public, on a variety of candidates running for offices, both at the federal, state, local level. And we have with us here one of those candidates. We're talking about Lindsey Horvath, who is a candidate for LA County Board of Supervisors. And first of all, good morning, Lindsey. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me and for the conversation today.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to go ahead and get started here. So Carlos, we'll have a couple of questions there for you first. So go ahead, Carlos.
I wanted to ask, what made you want to run for office?
Oh my gosh. Well, there is so much going on for working class people, especially. We, between COVID and even before that, we are trying to take care of people. And that's really what the county does. It's the social safety net for us at the local level. It's supposed to provide the services and support that we need, especially for those who need it the most. And that's really why I wanted to get into this race. I'm a social justice Catholic. I believe in being of service and really uplifting those who need it the most. I think that's what the county is supposed to do as well. In my experience at the local level, spending 15 years in local government, I've seen where the county has delivered for cities and local communities and where it hasn't. I've also served as president of California Contract Cities Association, which is an association of cities that contract for service mainly with the county. Things like sheriff and fire, public works, and more. And so I was their liaison during COVID. And so I saw what was going on, not only in my own community, but in cities throughout the county. And I just saw how people weren't getting the services and support that they needed, and I saw ways that we could fix that. And so I'm really excited to be focused on issues like housing and homelessness, community safety, getting people back to work and good jobs that afford themselves and their families a good quality of life, helping to build out a regional transportation network and infrastructure, and making good on those promises for Measures R&M, and making sure we're meeting people where they are. That's really what the county needs to do. It is local government and it needs to serve the people.
Thank you.
Excellent. You want to continue, Carlos? I think you have one more.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask, can you explain what's the role of LA County Board of Supervisors?
Sure. So LA County is about 10 million people. It is and each district is about 2 million. And so District 3 serves from Hollywood all the way to the coast, going westward. It includes Venice and Palms, and then obviously all the way up into the valley. We got this district got new areas like Porter Ranch and Granada Hills, and then it finally unified in the East Valley, Pacoima, Sylmar, and all the way up to Olive View. And then it comes all the way down through the Central Valley, that Central Valley area as well. Reseda, Winnetka, Sherman Oaks, it's a huge district. And so this county is supposed to deliver on issues like housing and homelessness. It is the social safety net, providing healthcare and services to families who need it. Child protective services is part of, and foster care is part of the county services. There are more than 20 departments, more than 100,000 people working at the county each and every day to deliver for working families. And it is the role of the county to make sure that people's needs are met on the ground. And so it's very important that somebody understands, somebody in this role not only understands, the cost of things and making sure there are budget items that are funded, but also how you spend that funding, because that's really what makes the difference. You have to hold yourself accountable on the local level, on the ground, in terms of implementation. And I think that's really what sets me apart in this race is I know how to make sure that money is invested in the places and people who need it most.
Yeah, and speaking of that, wanted to get into here some things that our county has been facing, like really many cities and counties across the U.S., but specifically here in LA County. And that's the our unhoused neighbors, the homeless crisis, or emergency really that we've been facing here for years now. What do you think as yourself as a future potential board of supervisors would need to happen from that office to really find solutions that are long-term for our unhoused neighbors?
Yeah, there needs to be a lot more coordination and a lot more accountability. And that's actually what I've been doing at the local level, serving as a mayor and a council member. I've worked with social service agencies that are locally based, rooted in community, culturally competent, and understand the needs of neighborhoods best. They are organizations that contract for service with the county. So we know they're already trusted service providers in the county. We contract for service with LA Sheriff's Department. So I've had the experience dealing with the LA County Sheriff's Department and can talk a bit more about that. But we coordinate our efforts. We have street teams that go out every day of the week, meeting people where they are, explaining to them the services and support that the county makes available, helping them to navigate that very dense and often incomprehensible bureaucracy that people need to navigate in order to get the services and support they need. We provide them with transportation and people to just help them navigate that. And if you think about it, those of us who know the county well, it's still challenging to navigate a very difficult bureaucracy. Put on top of that, some of our most challenged residents, asking them to navigate, sometimes 4 different departments to get what they need just doesn't make sense. On the safety side, we lead with clinically trained social workers in what is called a MET team, a mental health evaluation team, through the Sheriff's Department. They diagnose people on the spot. They're able to get them into services, treatment, and care rather than jailing someone simply for being unhoused. We think, people need help and support, not being thrown into the criminal justice system because they're impoverished or because they've had, difficult circumstances that they've faced. And this coordination of services, keeping people safe and keeping people cared for, we've had about an 80% success rate year after year, getting people off the streets and into housing services or both. And I think that's, while I admit it's not 100% success, I think that's something that the entire district and quite frankly, the entire county would like to see happening. People have, passed measures like Measure H, and they want to see the results in their community. They want to see people getting cared for, people getting housed in the services that they need. And I've done that at the local level. When I ran in 2011, there was a gentleman named Jeffrey who was sleeping on the steps of my campaign office because he couldn't find housing that it allowed him to bring his dog with him. And so I stuck with Jeffrey. We helped him navigate affordable housing and services and all of that. And when I was elected in 2015, he was very proud to write to me. I was serving as mayor, and he said, "Lindsey, I'm in housing. I'm in West Hollywood housing," because we had an inclusionary housing policy that required 20% of all of the housing, at least 20% of all the housing we developed to be devoted to moderate, low, and very low income people. So we're developing the housing that people really need the most. And he was thrilled to have his dog and stay in community. And I think that's the future everyone should have. Everyone deserves to have that throughout the district. And I'm excited to bring that kind of accountability and results to the Valley.
All right, thank you for that, and that putting forward that vision as well here for our listening audience. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about is related to which you alluded to, housing. We know that LA County, again, across the U.S., but we do see this housing crisis as well, lack of affordable housing, and what do you think the county can do as far as resources to be able to, find some equitable approaches to the housing market, as well as rents, because we know that inflation has been hitting Angelenos very, very hard, not just because of what's going on internationally with the Russia-Ukraine situation, but just in general, even prior to that. And now with that, it's added an extra burden economically to folks of LA County. So what do you think as Board of Supervisors you can do to really help tackle affordable housing?
I really appreciate the question. As a renter myself, I would be the only renter on the Board of Supervisors, which I think is a really important perspective as we look at the lifting of eviction moratoria, as we look at, potentially more people falling into homelessness if we don't do this right. I know a lot of folks in my community have been concerned about, their lack of income, their ability to stay in the housing that they would otherwise be able to afford. And even before COVID, we implemented a rental assistance program that provided one-time grants, and they've been available once per month during this time of emergency to help people bridge the gap if they missed a paycheck or they weren't able to make that full rental payment. We helped them bridge that funding so they could stay in that housing they would otherwise be able to afford. I know the state has provided a fund as well for this level of service. And until just recently, the deadline was supposed to be at the end of this month. I'm glad to see that the state has extended that deadline, but we need to make sure that people are supported in submitting their applications. Both renters and property owners are able to access that funding. But I've heard horror stories of people submitting a Word document instead of a PDF, and so their application was rejected. I mean, we really need to make sure that we're helping people get the services and support they need, not making it more difficult. On the housing side, we definitely need to create more housing options. And we need permanent supportive housing with wraparound services for people who are transitioning off our streets, who are struggling with mental health or addiction issues. We need to make sure that we're also providing housing that is affordable and developing housing that is affordable. And as I mentioned, we can do that through inclusionary housing policies. So as we're building housing in our communities, we're not just building it for the elite few, that we're building it for all the people who need housing, and we're setting rental rates that are affordable for people of moderate, low, and very low income levels. And I think that's incredibly important because we're seeing increasingly the cost of housing just continue to increase. We have a role to play in using our local land use authority to make housing options that meet people where they are in community, not asking them to be shipped out to some place they don't know or understand or feel comfortable. We need to meet people where they are. And it doesn't mean we overdevelop people's neighborhoods or, we build housing everywhere. But we do need to make sure that those housing options exist in each and every community and find the right places to do it, working with each neighborhood.
Yeah. Thank you for that as well. That's there's a lot there to dissect, as housing is, one of these issues that, really do affect everyone. And wanted to kind of move here into talking about, the county's proposed budget for 2021-2022 was, the budget's a little over $36 billion. No. And part of that was the county's anticipated $1.9 billion related to the American Rescue Act funding, which, relates to health, economic recovery, equity investment, sustainability, and preparedness. And so what do you think in general, though, should be the top priority when it comes to both health and economic recovery as we are moving into a different phase of this COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, we need to get businesses safely back up and running. I think that we're slowly transitioning there, and I'm glad to see many businesses coming back. There were provisions that were put in place throughout a lot of communities. In my own, we created what were called out zones that helped expand operations outdoors and allowed businesses to continue some of their operations in ways that were deemed safe by the public health department. But we need to make sure that we're helping those businesses come back, that we, for the people who will be working in those jobs, that we are making sure that the working circumstances are safe, that they are respected and valued and have dignity in their work, that they are paid wages that are worthy of the work that they're doing. That's important for the people who are working in those jobs, and for the families that they're trying to serve. I spoke with a hotel worker in my own community who's an immigrant, and he was talking about, he was concerned that when he lost his job because hotels were shut down during the pandemic, he was concerned about how he was going to be able to provide for his family. And so he wanted to stay working in some of those very high risk frontline duties just because he wanted to make sure he still had a paycheck. And I can certainly appreciate that, but we also need to make sure that we're keeping people safe. And, so I authored policies for grocery workers that help institute additional health and safety protocols. I authored hero pay for our frontline grocery and pharmacy workers. I authored an ordinance that created additional protections for our workers in hotels and in hospitality businesses, and made sure that they have good paying jobs and increased wages. And so I think that's incredibly important. But we also have to make sure that those funds that we're getting from the federal government are invested in infrastructure as well. So much of our infrastructure has been neglected and has not seen the level of investment that's needed. Oftentimes these budget items in local budgets deal with the infrastructure and the development at the time, but not necessarily thinking about ongoing maintenance. We need to make sure that we're taking full advantage of these dollars and investing them in the aging infrastructure in our communities that are not only problems for practical reasons when there's a water main break, but also for sustainability reasons and environmental protection. We can't lose water. We need to make sure that we're retrofitting our built out environment to make sure that it's sustainable for decades to come. And so I think that we have a real unique opportunity to invest those dollars in our communities, and we need to do so wisely. And that needs to happen in partnership with people on the ground. I think my style of government, I always bring people to the table, and I want to make decisions in partnership with people in each neighborhood so they know what's coming. They're very clear about what's coming to their neighborhood, what it's intended to provide, and we do it together. And I've had success being able to do that.
Absolutely. Yes, that's important, right? Working with the community, for the community, but also alongside the community there. And we're going to move into, Carlos had a question there. Go ahead, Carlos.
I wanted to ask, I know you briefly mentioned this earlier, but I want to ask, how do you plan on working with law enforcement?
So we obviously need to keep people safe. It's my number one priority as a local official. It's been my number one responsibility. And in my own community, if you look at our numbers today versus 5 years ago, our crime rate is still down about 20%. We've been able to help our community grow while also keeping people safe. And I know, especially during 2020, when there was civil unrest, we heard from our businesses that they were grateful to be in our community. They felt protected and safe based on the measures that we implemented. And we got a little creative, when we knew that people were going to come and march on our streets, understandably so, because the outrage that they felt because of the murder of George Floyd. We needed to make sure our streets were safe for people to be able to protest, and that our community would stay safe while people did it. And so we got creative and put dumpsters in the streets so people were able to continue to walk and protest and march and demonstrate and let their voices be heard. But there weren't cars that were driving down the streets to do smash and grabs and make sure that we could protect people in all ways. It's getting creative in ways like that we need to continue to do in partnership with law enforcement and make sure they have the resources they need to fight violent crime. But what we also need to do to keep people safe is invest in the services and care that people need. We need to lead with that level of support. And it's why I've been so passionate about making sure that we're investing in those resources, from youth programs, community-based organizations, pretrial programs that help support people and not be jailed simply because they aren't able to afford their bail and when they haven't been convicted of a crime. We need to make sure that we are certainly holding people accountable when there are issues that come up and crimes that are committed. But we also need to make sure that we're understanding holistically how we keep people safe and how we prevent crime. And we do that in partnership with law enforcement. We do that by providing them services and support for the things in which they're not uniquely trained. I've certainly seen, as chair of the county's Liability Trust Fund Claims Board and Oversight Committee, which is the body that hears all of the deputy involved cases and issues of liability for all of the contract cities. I've seen when a deputy shows up who doesn't know how to deal with somebody who's having a mental health episode or somebody who has special needs in terms of their response to how they show up at that call, it can actually escalate and create further problems, create danger in families and neighborhoods. And that's not what we want. We want to set everyone up to succeed when we're delivering safety resources. So we need to invest in mental health evaluation teams. We need to invest in behavioral health response in terms of those times of crisis and make sure that we have the right kind of response for the right kind of safety issues ongoing in our community. And that happens in partnership with law enforcement. And sometimes it can take the lead role. But I've also heard people in those roles have been told that when they show up in a time of crisis, that if something, God forbid, happens and they feel they're in danger, that they're supposed to call 911. That shouldn't be. We need to have coordinated response. We need to make sure local law enforcement understands when people are out in community delivering those services and make sure we're doing that together.
Thank you for that. And then also we would just wanted to, we're almost out of time here as we're getting the word here, but okay. Just what are your final, just a closing remarks here, 30 seconds.
Sure. So I got into this race with a sense of urgency to help people who need it the most. And, we need somebody who, like I said before, isn't just about, throwing money at problems and hoping it provides solutions. We need somebody who is on the ground working with people day to day. And I'm endorsed by over 100 local elected officials, including council members in San Fernando and people throughout the district, because of my ability to get things done. I'm eager to do that for the San Fernando Valley. You deserve to have your fair share of services, support, and care, and I am prepared to deliver it.
Excellent. Well, with that said, we want to thank you, Lindsey Horvath, running for candidate for LA County Board of Supervisors. We want to thank our listening audience as well. And on the Meet the Candidates 2022 series here on Valley Views KROJ. And we wish you the best on this beautiful Sunday, everybody. Much love, peace, and good vibes. And we'll see you again next Sunday, everybody.
Yo, it's Fernando. Shouts out to Valley Views, man. They played me on the station. I was like, let me make you a jingle. So this is my jingle I made for them. This is what I have to do. This is Valley Views. This is what I have to do. This is Valley Views. Got me singing like, eh, eh, eh. So what you want? Got me singing like, eh, eh, eh. So what you want? Got me singing like, eh, eh, eh. So what you want? Got me singing like, eh, eh, eh. So what you want? I wasn't tripping when I lost my job. No reason to lie to my mom. Now I've got 8, 9 to 5, y'all. I was like, right on, right on, right on. No work on weekends.